So I thought I'd talk today a little bit about this thing that's been going on with Hershey's lately. So trending on Twitter today, and not that Twitter is the greatest source for news, but you can use it that way if you are at least discerning and are willing to go look up the topics I talked about. Anyhow, trending on Twitter, Hershey's hates women. It's kind of a funny title, but to basically sum up the situation, Hershey's ran a new ad campaign featuring a trans woman, or in other words, not a woman, as their spokesperson in this campaign. So we got the commercial right over here. It's in this article from Newsweek. You can play the clip. I'm not going to play it. But basically, you can see this person. Was it Faye Johnston, I believe the name is? Yeah, Faye Johnston. This is the person that is within the campaign. Basically, it's a new ad campaign, and obviously, it's woke politics meant to try and get people to buy chocolate. I know, kind of dumb, right? The idea that politics should dictate whether or not you buy things. But unfortunately, that's just kind of the world that we live in, where you want to be discerning about where you give your money, because these companies will then donate money to their campaign causes, or they'll promote certain ideas within the general public, and then those ideas within society will become more or less prevalent. That is the culture war in a nutshell. That's cancel culture. That's what everyone's so upset about. And it seems like the political right on this case has decided that it is necessary to boycott Hershey's for depicting this strange idea, I guess we can say. Well, they're depicting a man who thinks he's a woman, and they're thinking that's going to help them sell candy. Well, to some people, yeah, it will, but generally how these things go is company makes woke ad. Woke ad offends the sensibilities of conservatives. Conservatives do nothing and still buy the product. In this case, though, it seems like conservatives, or this is one of the few cases where conservatives will say, no, we're going to do a boycott of you. And we'll see how long this lasts. But yeah, it's basically, some people would say it's reverse cancel culture, and it's not necessarily. Cancel culture, to my understanding, more referred to you dig up a person's past, old tweets, comments, statements that they said that where they said things that were insensitive, and so therefore use that as a cudgel to basically take away their life. And maybe you could use a broader definition of cancel culture where you refuse to interact with institutions and individuals that are deemed to be, I guess, heretical to your ideas. But I don't know, if we're going with the second one, the more broad definition, then sure, this is cancel culture coming from the right towards the left. And that just basically means that the right's willing to fight back on this issue. They're saying, no, we don't want you pushing this trans person on the face of a major company in the US or Canada. So, yeah, and it's kind of odd. So, they released this on International Women's Day. This is their promo. And so, obviously, you have the whole ideological breakdown of is a trans woman a woman, or yes or no, basically. And that's kind of the issue there. But I'll leave my opinion out of it for now. But we'll just read the article for a bit. Some social media users have called for a boycott of Hershey's products over its decision to include a transgender woman in its International Women's Day advertising campaign in Canada. The chocolate manufacturer brought back its She Bar for a third time on March 1st to shine a light on the women and girls who inspire us every day. In Canada, this is being branded as a Her, with bars featuring the faces of 5 women chosen to be part of the campaign. One of those chosen for the motion is Faye Johnston. Johnstone? I don't really know. We're going to go with Johnston and say that's the pronunciation. Johnston is a transgender rights activist who said they would be honored to be featured. See, now here's the dumb thing. This person is claiming to be a woman when in reality this is a person with XY chromosome, a man, a male, however you want to state that. But it believes that it's a woman, it believes it's a female, but we're using the neuter plural pronoun in order to refer to this person. At least, wouldn't it make, if you wanted to transition to another gender, wouldn't you at least use the pronouns of the gender you're trying to become? But I guess this person wants to be non-binary or something. I guess they would be the broad category for non-binary pronouns. Transgender rights is an issue that is proving deeply polarizing. In the U.S., a 2022 survey by the Pew Research Center found that 38% of Americans believe society had gone too far in accepting transgender people, while 36% said it had not gone far enough. It's interesting. 38% believes it's gone too far. I would have thought it would be. I thought it would be the reverse. That people who say it's not gone far enough would be in the majority, but I guess not. In a statement person, I grew up with few trans role models. Many of young folks don't have trans role models. Yeah, because there's not very many trans people. It's not exactly a brain buster there. You get the feeling like these companies always despise women. Oh yeah, so this is, I guess, the criticism. Yeah, Abigail Schreier. I believe she wrote a book talking about um, transgender as being a social contagion amongst the youth, I guess, or something like that. Like it's not. I guess social contagion isn't the right word, but it's a trend that's being pushed through social media, and that's causing lots of young girls to become gender dysphoric. You get the feeling these companies always despise women. They were just waiting for the right moment to stick it to us. Here's the thing about real women, Hershey's. We have long memories. And so yeah. So basically, not everyone's happy with this campaign. Obviously, if you're more traditional or right wing, or I guess the broader tent of what people would call a right wing these days, then yeah, I guess that's an issue. Give me a moment, please. Better. All right. Moving on to another statement. A biological man fronts the new Hershey's campaign celebrating women for International Women's Day. Ollie London, an internet personality who in 2022 announced plans to detransition, wrote, "This is misogyny at its finest, a real slap in the face to actual women." So actually, I've only recently learned who Ollie London even is. So last week on Friday, this person, Ollie London, did an interview with Tim Pool and basically talked about kind of his life story, how he transitioned and then eventually recently came out of the transition period. And he's been a pretty to say that he's active in politics wouldn't be accurate because until recently he has never really commented about it. But he has been paying attention, and this is a British guy who lived in South Korea. So the interesting thing about him is that he was transracial. He wanted to be Korean, and he was transgender. He wanted to be a woman. And recently, he's since detransitioned. But before that, he got a whole bunch of surgeries to facial feminization, things to make his face look more Korean. That's what he was doing at the time. And since then, he's decided to detransition and realized that it was not for him, that it was a mistake. Anyhow, let's go and move on. Let's talk a little bit about the Pew Research. So I tried to pull it up just because I like to. So the Newsweek article did reference Pew Research, saying that 38% are saying it's gone too far. And which one of these? Yeah, I got three things, and one of them said it's gone too far. But yeah, we can see here's a breakdown. Americans don't agree on the impact of greater acceptance of trans people in society. So according to this little pie chart they're presenting, it's obviously, you have some people who think it's very bad, some people in the middle. But yeah, it kind of falls along the predictable lines where obviously you have the GOP, the Republicans, they think it's bad. Democrats, they think it's very good. And the people in the middle tend to be independents. They're the people who I always have a hard time categorizing like what independents are, I guess. I guess the people I'm torn between they don't really care and they don't pay attention, or they just don't pay attention, or they're honestly split because they pay attention and they don't know who's right. I don't know which one is the best way to categorize it. I guess it's just a mixed basket of people in that center. But there's a deep dark partisan divide on this. And this partisan divide is a little bit about what I want to talk about. So, moving on. Matt Walsh, I already showed this for a second ago, but he's basically challenging Faye Johnston, the face of the new Hershey's ad campaign in Canada for International Women's Day. Basically, he's challenging this person to define what a woman is, and I'll give you $20,000 to give to a charity of your choice. Which, say, that's pretty cool, I guess. But again, Matt Walsh is the guy who's famous for making the What is a Woman documentary. So, odds are Faye Johnston is not going to be able to provide what Matt Walsh would consider to be a coherent definition. Moving on, we have a little thing from Matt Walsh here. I'm not sure if my microphone will work with the settings that it currently has to play what he's actually saying. Regardless, that's not really the point right now. Basically, in the state of Mississippi was signing a bill to ban the transitioning of children, and this is in large part because Matt Walsh has been particularly active in this field. Now, trying to stay out of my own personal beliefs on it, it seems as though the activism that Walsh has been engaging in has been a huge factor in spurring these states to take some sort of action, because it felt reasonably or pretty slow before that. But then you had the What Is a Woman documentary coming out, and you had him doing things to try and expose gender clinics. You had the whole affair in Loudoun County, so he's been particularly active in this field, and it seems like you're at a point where you're seeing the fruits of his labor at this point, where states are taking an active stance against this, or at least the right-wing states are. And here's another one. And so this is, I guess you can say, is the political future of what the political right is going to be. So, in the words of Matt Walsh in this tweet, we need a federal ban on drag queen groomers to go along with a federal ban on child mutilation and castration. Every 2024 Republican candidate needs to explicitly promise this. And so there, you have it. This is what everything is kind of gearing towards, I guess you can say. This is the policy position that you're going to need to have if you want to compete in the right-wing sphere. Drag queens were children, and gender transitioning children are just not going to be tolerated at all. This is the political right. Now, again, I have my own personal feelings about this, but I'm trying to practice, I guess you can say, not necessarily taking a political stance. But because I consider this speech just so ridiculous, I'll just go and say what my stance is. You shouldn't be transitioning these children at all. It's absolutely disgusting that anyone would ever consider it. And you got this guy below Matt Walsh, Warren. The guy sounds... Pardon my French, but this is an asshole comment to give. Still good with child beauty pageants? Because I'd start there. Yo, no one's talking about child beauty pageants. People are talking about transitioning children. That is what people are talking about. Why are you changing the conversation? It feels like a cheap gotcha moment. I looked into his profile a little bit. I guess he's just more like a libertarian guy, I guess. I guess he seems to have trouble figuring out that once you start banning the transitioning of children, well, where does it stop? Do you also have to ban child pageants? Do you also have to ban other things too? And it's just, there are some things that should be banned. That is not a crazy position to have. If you want my position on child beauty pageants, I don't like them either. Get rid of them. It's not a hard thing to say. I don't know who he's saying is defending these things. Look, when I'm on the internet, I don't see people defending this kind of stuff. I normally see people saying, this is kind of bad. This shouldn't be going on. But it seems as though people who are on the left, or people who, for some reason, want to support the mutilation of children, reference this as an excuse. Or not an excuse, but as a sort of, like they're trying to make you have to be a hypocrite somehow. It's like, I can be against both of those things. It's not impossible. Right now, we have a ban. We're trying to do bans on the transitioning of children. And while, yes, I think that child beauty pageants are very bad. If you want, pageants are bad. Child beauty pageants are just bad. I don't understand why you need me to confirm that for you. It's like asking for someone to... It's kind of like, however, whenever you have a conservative who comes out and says, we should have a merit-based system. We should get rid of affirmative action. And then you're called racist for it. It's the most ridiculous thing. I get that point wasn't articulated very well, so I'm going to have to apologize for that one. That was kind of dumb. But anyhow, this is just changing the conversation. And further, child pageants are bad. These kids might need some therapy when they grow up because they're kind of being exploited, if you ask me. I mean, the ramifications on them as they get older could be varied. I'd hope that the worst that happens is they just have a tendency to overgroom themselves and that they tend to look nicer in public. I hope that's all that really happens to them. But my gut says it could be something worse. Anyhow, at least with child pageants, we're not mutilating their genitals so that when they grow up, they will be sterile and unable to have children. We're not performing surgeries on them that will leave them in perpetual pain for the rest of their lives. We're not deluding them into believing that they're something that they're not. It's not a terribly hard position to take. Anyhow, let's move on. We've been on this one for long enough. So, more of the fruits of Matt Walsh's labor. Tennessee's banning drag shows and gender-affirming care. The governor signed this bill already, I believe. And then you had a similar deal going on in Mississippi. Like, states are banning this. That's a good thing. And so let's go to the post-millennial, because it's shorter and it kind of gets to the point a little bit better than The Hill does. On Friday, Tennessee lawmakers passed a pair of bills, one banning public drag performances in specific areas and another banning child sex changes. The two bills now head to Governor Bill Lee's desk for a signature. That's just the stats on who voted for it and who didn't. Those found in violation of the bill would be charged with Class A misdemeanor for the first offense, punishable by up to 1 year in jail. I think you could do a little bit more, but hey, you gotta start somewhere. The bill bans healthcare providers from performing care on minors for the purpose of enabling a minor to identify with or live as a purported identity inconsistent with the minor's sex. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Senate Bill 3 seeks to amend existing state law banning adult-oriented businesses from operating within 1,000 feet of public parks or places of worship and school. So, you can't do it near a church or synagogue, can't do it near a public park, and you can't do it near a school. Those are the places where you're not going to be able to have your drag performances. And it's also been expanded to include adult cabaret performances. So basically, things that are titillating or meant to have a certain sexual aspect or arousal in the appeal of the performance, that's all banned. Well, it's banned within specific circumstances. And it doesn't matter if it's a man or woman doing it, and I think that's fine. Personally, I don't really like I'm against the whole idea of having these kind of adult cabaret performances. In my perfect world, that wouldn't even be a business model anywhere at any time. But, it doesn't always work that way. Anyhow, I wanted to talk about this because I think this is kind of a big deal. Well, it's kind of a big deal. It's something that's being talked about a lot, and it kind of references the whole idea of should conservatives be actively boycotting Hershey's? And we kind of got off topic there, but yeah, I think they probably should be because I believe people should stand up for what they believe in. Don't sit around just if Hershey's hates your values, or at least they put out advertisements and statements that insult your values, then why would you keep giving them your money? Why? As I guess you can make the argument that Hershey's isn't insulting conservatives. They're conservatives just being oversensitive and being offended by the mere sight of a trans woman. It's like it's more complicated than that, and people know it. By putting a trans woman on this advertisement, it's the normalization of this idea. And conservatives don't want this to be normal. That's just I don't know how else you frame that. Conservatives don't want this to become normal. And so toleration leads to acceptance, and acceptance leads to normalization. And we're at the point now in society where trans people are basically accepted as not as existing, because people with gender dysphoria obviously exist. The issue is that society looks and says there's nothing wrong with them, or at least society writ large, or at least the major institutions within any given society. I also think it's kind of interesting that when you dig into these Pew Research articles, I think one or multiple of them talk about how most people think that the sex you are assigned at birth is your actual sex. And there's a whole issue of from the mid-20th century onwards, there's been a conflation with the words gender and sex. Like before that, they used to essentially mean the same thing, but then within certain academic circles, social activist circles, social progressives, feminist circles, the gender and sex started to mean slightly different things, where sex referred to biology and gender referred to, what's the word for it? Gender referred to, I guess, your behavior or your societal role. I think that's just kind of dumb. Because most people still hold the traditional view of they mean the same thing, which I'm surprised by. I thought that would have been a lot less, but I guess it's more. And Yeah, I'm one of those people who says sex and gender are the same thing. That's how I was raised. That's how everyone I grew up with was raised. That's just what I know. And so the whole idea that somehow these things are different literally makes no sense to me. I understand what the other side is saying. I also think that the other side is wrong. I do believe that gender dysphoria exists. It's not denying the existence of people who claim to be trans. I just think that they are not mentally well. They could probably use some help. I don't believe that they should be beaten in the streets. I do believe that they should get some sort of therapeutical help. I don't believe that enabling them to continue to go down in a downward spiral of believing their own fantasy is going to do anyone good. I had a grandfather once who he had dementia. He was not well. He would hallucinate a lot and believe that things were happening that weren't happening. I don't believe in giving into people's false perceptions of the truth. And these people don't even have dementia. At some core level, they know what reality is. Like whenever trans people get self-conscious whenever genitals are being exposed, theirs or someone else's, because it reminds them that what they are is not real. They're not what they claim to be. So that kind of upsets them, obviously, because at the root of the whole thing, they know what the truth is. What they're claiming to be isn't the reality. And I'm not saying that they deserve to be in pain and to suffer. What I am saying is they shouldn't be dictating the conversation, and we shouldn't have to bend over backwards for what they think might be right. There is a fundamental reality. I would like to refer to the world in terms of what that reality is, not based off of how other people feel about that reality. But yeah, that's me going on a long rant. I try to be kind of a bit more neutral, but I think I kind of failed in that regard. I don't know. I guess to agree, what's the point of being neutral sometimes, you know? I mean, it's good to try and present both sides' arguments, I believe, but I get annoyed whenever, I mean, I don't mind presenting the arguments or at least stating that I know what the other side's argument is. I guess I just rather be able to state what I believe. Because at the core of the whole issue, the whole reason why I'm talking about these things is because I believe in something. What am I here, just to talk about what's going on, not give you my opinion on it? I mean, I guess I could do that, but I don't know, that just seems kind of dull. I want to. When I'm just telling you about saying what's going on. I don't know. It feels dull. It feels uninteresting. What I'd rather do is I'd rather state clearly and definitively what I believe, because that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about what I believe in. Obviously, everyone should be. I don't necessarily want to have to insult people, but I don't know. That's all I have for today. Thanks for listening. Please consider liking and subscribing. This is just a hobby channel of mine. I do it because I try to have fun. I try to talk about the news, and I guess I try to give my opinion on it because there are things in the world that I think matter. And, well, if you learned something or if you managed to get some information out of this, then, I'm glad that you did. Stay safe. Have a good one. Bye.